and dihybrid crosses. Let's take a look at the first problem. So in tigers, having stripes is dominant to being stripeless, and having tan fur is dominant to having white fur. A female that's heterozygous for both traits. So that's the first key piece of information that we're given. Doesn't really matter the gender, but we know that one of the people mating is heterozygous for both traits. And that, so the female that's heterozygous mates with the male who is also heterozygous. So this cross is a heterozygote times or mating with a heterozygote. So based on the information given, if they're heterozygous for both genes, that means they have, for the S gene, they have a big copy of the S gene and a small copy of the S gene. And same goes for the T gene. They have a big copy of the T gene and a small copy of the T gene. And that's for the mom, but it's the same exact thing for the dad, who's also heterozygous for both genes. The question is asking us to find the probability that the offspring will be stripeless and tan. So when we're giving these two phenotypes, we should go back into the problem and see what genotype codes for that. So the stripeless phenotype, the problem says that stripes is dominant and stripeless is recessive. So in order to express the stripeless phenotype, you would need to be homozygous recessive for the S gene. In other words, you need to be small s. For the tan gene, turns out that the tan phenotype is dominant and the white phenotype is recessive. So if we are looking for offspring that is tanned, they just need a single copy of the T gene because T is dominant. So it doesn't matter what the second allele they have is. This can be big T, or it could be big T, little t. Both of those would give you a tan phenotype, which is what we're looking for. So the question is asking us to find the probability that the offspring will have this phenotype and be this genotype. So we're looking for that in the cross between mom and dad. So when solving problems like this, it's best to think about it one gene at a time. So let's start with the S gene. Let's choose a color for this, green. So let's say the mom were to give this copy of her S gene to the offspring, right? So she gives a big copy. Now we think, what could the dad give? Well, the dad can either give a big copy of the S gene or a small copy of the S gene. So we draw arrows to represent that. Big copy of the S gene, a small copy of the S gene. And let's say, hypothetically, the mom were to give a small copy of the S gene, this one here. If she were to give that, small s, the dad can again either give a big copy or a small copy, so we draw arrows to represent that. And then to find the probability of the genotype of the offspring, you just multiply across. So you multiply this big S from mom times this big S from dad, and you get, if that was the case, the child would have two big S alleles. If it was this big S and this small s, that would be big S, small s, and then you keep doing that cross all the way down. And for this one, it's small s times small s, so this is the homozygous recessive one. And as it turns out, what we're looking for is the homozygous recessive phenotype of the S gene. In order to be stripeless, you need to have two small s's. And out of these four offspring, the only one to have two small s alleles is this guy. So there's a 1 out of 4 chance that in this this generation, the offspring will be stripeless. Now we do that same thing for the T gene. So let's say the mom were to give a big copy of the T gene. What can the dad give? Again, the dad could either give a big copy or a small copy. So we represent that with arrows. Let's say the mom were to give her small copy of the T gene. Again, the dad can either give a big copy or a small copy. It's all he got. So now you multiply big T, big T, big T, little t, big T, and then little t, little t. And we mentioned before that we're looking for the tan phenotype. And we said that to be tan, you just need one copy of the T gene. It doesn't matter what the other copies are. So we think which of these offspring will express the tan phenotype. Well, this one will, this one will not. This one will be white because there's no dominant copy of the T gene. So how many of these will be tan? That's 3 out of 4 tan. So now we have the probabilities that the offspring will be stripeless, and the individual probability of the offspring will be tan. And now we want to combine those together. So we use what's called the product rule, which allows us to multiply two individual events to find the probability that both of those events will occur. So we multiply 1/4, that's from stripeless, times 3 out of 4, that's from tan. And when we do that math, we get 3/16. That's our answer. Let's try another problem. In this question, wings is dominant to being wingless, and having bar eyes is dominant to having round eyes. A female who's homozygous recessive, so let's just write that. If she's homozygous recessive for both traits, what is her genotype? Well, that would be small w, small b, small b. So this is mom, and she's going to mate with a male that is homozygous dominant for both traits. So homozygous dominant would mean he's got the dominant allele of both genes. So that's big W, big B, big B. We want to find the probability that the offspring will be wingless and have round eyes. So we want to figure out what genotype would express that phenotype, and to figure that out, we need to look back at the problem. So wingless is recessive. So similar to the other problem, to have a recessive phenotype, you need to be homozygous recessive. So you need to have 2 small copies of the W gene. Round eyes is also recessive, so you need to have 2 copies of the small b gene. And we need to find a probability that that the offspring from this cross will have this genotype, and as such have this phenotype. Let's think about this one gene at a time. So let's start with if the mom were to give a small copy of her W gene, and we think, what can the dad give? The dad can give a big copy or big copy. He's homozygous dominant for both traits. If the mom were to give her other small copy of the W gene, again, the dad can either give a big copy or a big copy. I'll try to make that a little bit obvious that those are capital. And if we do that cross, we find that every one of these are going to be homozygous or heterozygous, because they're always going to get a small copy of the W gene and a big copy of the W gene. They will never have two of the same allele. So thinking about our question, we're looking for offspring that is wingless, and as we said before, wingless is recessive. None of these offspring will be recessive. All of these are heterozygotes. So the probability is 0 out of 4 that the offspring will be wingless. And that essentially answers the question there, because the question is asking the probability that the offspring will be wingless and have round eyes, but if none of them are wingless, the answer is essentially 0%. We can go ahead and solve for the B gene just to be thorough. So if we do the same for the B gene and we think, well, what if the mom gave a small copy of her B gene to the offspring? The dad can either give a big copy or a big copy. So represent that with arrows. And again, the mom has another copy of the small b gene, and the dad only has big copies. So again, all of these will be heterozygotes. So if we do this cross, small b, big B, small b, big B, we're always going to get small b, big B in the offspring. So going back to what we thought of before, to have round eyes, you need to be homozygous recessive for the B gene, and none of the offspring are homozygous recessive. All of them are heterozygote. So 0 out of 4 will have round eyes. Product rule lets us multiply these two probabilities. 0 out of 4 times 0 out of 4 is just 0. Let's try another problem. Okay, in flowers, teal color is dominant to navy color, and a gardener crosses two plants that are heterozygous for color. What are the odds that the offspring will be navy? So this is a bit simpler because we're dealing with just one gene. So we know that the plant is heterozygous, so that genotype is big T, little t. And it's crossed with another heterozygote. So also big T, little t. And we want to know the odds that the offspring will be navy. The navy phenotype or the navy genotype is little t, because we know from the problem that navy color is recessive. So we're looking for the offspring, but we're looking for the probability that the offspring will have this phenotype. So let's do this cross. If the mom were to give a big copy of the T gene, what can the dad give? The dad can either give a big copy or a little copy. So let's write that in. If the dad were to give a small copy of the T gene, if the mom were to give a small copy of the T gene, what could the dad give? The dad could give a big copy or a little copy. And let's do that math. We multiply the big T, you get two big T's, big T, little t. We get big T, little t, and then little t, big T, and then little t, little t. So the genotype that we're looking for is the recessive genotype because that codes for being navy. So we think, okay, which of these offspring are homozygous recessive and express the navy phenotype? Turns out it's only this one. 1 out of 4 of these are navy. And that's just our answer. Let's try another one. Okay, in the cross, okay, so this is a long cross, so let's just write it out. So from the mom, we're getting, this is her genotype. And then from the dad, we're getting, I'll do a different color. So in this cross, we want to know what proportion of offspring are expected to be homozygous or heterozygous for genes A and B, and homozygous for genes C and D. So we're looking for the offspring to be big A, big B, little b, and then I guess this doesn't tell us if it should be homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive, so let's just say the question is asking for homozygous, let's see, homozygous recessive. So in that case, it would be small c, and small c, or small d. So what's the probability that in this cross, we will get this offspring? So let's deal with this one gene at a time. Let's start with if the mom were to give a big copy of her A gene, what would happen? Well, what can the dad give? The dad can either give a big copy or a little copy. And same goes for if the mom were to give the small copy of her A gene. The dad can only give those two. So if the mom were to give a small copy of her A gene, the dad can give a big A or a little a. If you do that in math, we get big A, big A, big A, little a, big A, little a, and little a, little a. And from the problem, we're looking for offspring that is heterozygous. So we count which one of this 4 is heterozygous. And so that's this one and this one, or 2 out of 4. Big A, little a. Let's move on to the B gene. If the mom were to give a small copy of the B gene, the dad can either give a big copy or a small copy. Big copy or small copy. And the mom also has a second small copy of the B gene. And the dad can again either give a big copy or a small copy. If we do that math, we get big B, little b, little b, little b, big B, little b, and little b, little b. And we're looking for offspring that is heterozygous. So that's this guy and this guy. So 2 out of 4 will be big B, little b. Let's move on to the C gene. As it turns out, it will be the same ratio. So mom gives a small copy of the C gene or a small copy of the C gene because that's all she has. The dad can give a big copy or a little copy. Big copy or a little copy. If we do that out, we get big C, little c, little c, little c, big C, little c, and little c. And we're looking for homozygous recessiveness. So that's little c, and there's 2 of these that are little c. So that's 2 out of 4 little c. So last one, we're going to move on to the D gene. So if the mom were to give a big copy of the D gene, what can the dad give? The dad can either give a big copy or a little copy. So big D, little d. If the mom were to give a small copy of the D gene, the dad can, again, either give a big D or a little d. If you do the math, we get big D, big D, big D, little d, big D, little d, and little d. We're looking for recessivity, so that's this one, and it's and that's 1 out of 4 small d. And again, using the probability rule, we can take all of these probabilities and multiply them, and that will be our answer. But for 2 out of 4, for the 2 out of 4s, it's best to just make it 1/2. It makes the math a little bit easier. So 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, and then times 1/4. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 4 is 32. So the answer is 1/32. Let's do one more problem. In the cross, again, I just write out this cross because it's kind of long. What is the odds the offspring will be heterozygous for both traits? So AA, big B. What is the probability the offspring produced from this cross will have this genotype? So thinking about it one gene at a time, let's go ahead and consider if the mom were to give a big copy of her A gene, what would the dad give? Small copy or small copy? If the mom were to give this copy of her A allele, it'd be the same thing. So you don't really have to write this out, but if you do this multiplication, you get big A, little a, big A, little a. All of these are heterozygous, and that's what we're looking for, so 4 out of 4, or 1. And let's do the same thing for the B gene. So if the mom were to give a big copy of the B gene, the dad can only give a small copy or a small copy. Small copy or a small copy. If the mom were to give a small copy of the B gene, the dad can give a small copy or a small copy. And do the math, big B times little b, all of these would be, or for the top, all of them would be heterozygous. For the bottom, big B times little b, then big B times little b, little b, little b. And again, we're looking for the heterozygous phenotype, so that's this guy and this guy. So 2 out of 4 is the answer, or 2 out of 4 will be big B, little b. 4 out of 4 will be big A, little a. So we do the product rule, and we do 1, because 4 out of 4 is just 1, times 2 out of 4, and we get 50%. 50% will be heterozygous for both traits.